Fate Zero is one of my all-time favorite anime series. It features Arttoria Pendragon, the badass king of knights who ruled over Britain. Oddly, there's no shortage of Fate fans who actually dislike Zero, specifically because of how it portrays Saber. Joking of Fate Zero's author, Gen Urobuchi, they claim he uro-butchered Artoria's character, making her incompatible with the version Nasu originally wrote for Fate Stay Night. I wholeheartedly disagree, which is why I'd like to analyze what is considered the most controversial scene for Arttoria, the Grail dialogue where she, Alexander the Great, and Gilgamesh all sit down over wine to discuss which of them deserves the Grail most. Perhaps they could come to a diplomatic agreement without needing to fight. Yeah, right. But it's cool how they at least try. The way Arttoria acts and how she's treated during this scene leads some fans to think she's poorly written. Perhaps because of this, when Ryogo Narita wanted to revisit this scene for Fate Strange Fake, Nasu gave him the okay to basically make his own version. The Mushroom Man has actually done this many times before, allowing other authors to expand on his universe, so long as they technically count as alternate timelines. Thus, even though Fate Zero is supposed to depict the Fourth Grail War, serving as a solid prequel to Stay Night, it's actually not the same Grail Nasu's planned out in his head. Even though Nasu's never sat down and written his own chronicle of the Fourth War, he asserts that Zero's version doesn't quite match what he would write, if he ever actually put the effort in to do so. If you've read Stay Night, it does reference the Fourth Grail War on occasion, and yeah, there are some differences from that alone. Presumably, in Nasu's version of the war, Arttoria and Gilgamesh fight it out amidst the Grail's corrupt flames. That doesn't happen in Zero. Of course, this is semantic as hell, because if Zero's not on the same timeline as Stay Night, then it's close enough that there's another universe out there where a mostly accurate Stay Night does follow Zero's war. I'd like to think Nasu's not too bent out of shape on this, and just uses multiverse theory to make everyone's works canon to some degree. However, now that Strange Fake depicts this Grail dialogue, fans are saying it fixes what Urobuchi fucked up. Since the Strange Fake anime is so rushed and its flashback isn't very long at all, I think it would be fun to break down the full scene for both Zero and Strange Fake respectively, using their light novels for full context. Exactly what was changed about the scene? Is one really better than the other? Regardless of what opinion you come out of this with, I'd like to think I'm providing a valuable service. This, of course, rides off the back of the wonderful fans who have translated the novels, mainly from Beast's Lair, like Brynhilda, Muarmo 990, Naculus, Other Side of Sky, Mew, Humberto Zero, RCM 9698, Zafkiel II, Komun, Takeshi's News Center, Shisuberu, and Zero Destreza. None of this would be possible without their hard work. The Grail dialogue in Fate Zero takes place during Volume 2, Act 8, spanning Parts 5 and 6. It begins in the ruins of the Einsburn Castle, which has just been ravaged by an attack from Kaneth. Kiritsugu's gone, and Maya is recovering in one of the bedrooms. This leaves Irisfeel and Arttoria keeping watch over the place. In comes Iskandar and his master Waver, storming in as if to attack, only to suggest talking things out instead. He brags he did them a favor by cutting down some trees with his entrance. Iskandar's come wearing his new t-shirt and jeans, and is surprised to see Arttoria still in her armor. He actually got jealous how Arttoria got to wear a modern suit earlier. Insisting on a banquet, Iskandar shows off the casket of wine he stole from Taiga's parents. Arttoria acknowledges this as a battle without bloodshed, a very different kind of challenge. Since the castle itself was all fucked up, they decide to host their debate in the courtyard. Even though Artoria's body is slender, she can handle her liquor like a champ, earning Iskandar's praise. This is when Gilgamesh materializes in, responding to Iskandar's invitation. True to character, he complains about the venue and the wine. He then provides some ale from his own storehouse, along with cups to drink from. Despite her hesitation, Arttoria tries it and acknowledges its quality and potency. However, when Gil suggests his wine makes him the superior king, Arttoria calls him a clown. Iskandar admits the two of them arguing is tiresome. Getting things back on track, Iskandar asks Gilgamesh to state why he thinks he deserves the Grail. We know his response. The Grail should belong to him by default, because he owns all the world's treasures, whether they remain in his storehouse or not. Hell, even if he never actually possessed it physically, since it's a treasure of some kind, it's his. Pure childish arrogance, if you ask me. Arttoria says his reasoning is as demented as Castor's. Anyway, Gil admits he could gift the Grail to a different servant, but doesn't deem anyone worthy of that. He only rewards his own subjects, and invites Iskandar to be his retainer. As a fellow king, though, that's obviously not possible. Adding insult to injury, Gilgamesh doesn't even need the Grail for anything right now. He just doesn't want anyone robbing his treasures. This is a rule he set as king, and he stands by his laws out of principle. The two both agree that if you want something, you take it by force, but that doesn't mean you won't face opposition in the process. Thus, they admit they'll have to settle things on the battlefield, but not right now since the booze is too good. Arttoria finds it odd that Iskandar would admit the Grail belongs to Gil while still wanting to claim it. Such is the nature of a conqueror. The reason he wants it is to reincarnate as a human and resume his conquest. He doubts he'll ever conquer the world in a lifetime, but it's the pursuit he's most after. Being a heroic spirit isn't enough. He must conquer with his own body of flesh and bone. Hearing this, Gilgamesh declares he'll be the one to kill Iskandar. The King of Conquerors then declares he'll be the one to plunder Gilga's treasury. The two take delight in this provocation, but Arttoria just watches in disbelief. Nothing they're saying matches what she believes a king should be. They're just being tyrants, and she feels a moral obligation to keep them from the Grail. When prompted, she confesses her own wish for the Grail, to save her homeland by changing England's destruction. Her words are met with an awkward silence before Iskandar asks if she means to redo history. Arttoria clarifies that since Britain's destruction occurred under her rule, she cannot forgive herself and wants to revisit that era and change things. Gilgamesh starts laughing his ass off, which understandably pisses Arttoria off. Her most precious wish is being mocked. Mid-laugh, Gil notes the absurdity of a king having regrets. It's true, though. Arttoria sacrificed her life to rule Britain, only for it to perish. Yet again, the idea of a king sacrificing for her country makes Gil hysterical. Arttoria doubles down on the need for a king to sacrifice themselves to create a better country. Immediately, Iskandar disagrees, claiming a nation should sacrifice for its king, not the other way around. Lashing out, Arttoria calls that the rule of a heretic. Sure enough, Iskandar admits to being a tyrant, one who takes full responsibility for his rule. He claims it's far better than a weak ruler who regrets their rule. Totally confused, Arttoria reminds Iskandar that his own empire split into warring factions and faded from history. Shouldn't he want to save his motherland? No, he doesn't. He'll shed tears for his fallen kingdom, but not regret what resulted from his choices. To rewrite that part of history would be an insult to everyone who participated in it. Not backing down, Arttoria says that's not what her people want. They want salvation from their king, a kingdom that's well-governed and lawful. The only one fit to rule is one who gives themselves up for an ideal nation. After all, the ideals she speaks of should last long after her own death. Instead, Iskandar pities her, saying that kind of king wouldn't be human. In turn, Arttoria claims a king should not expect to live a normal life. The moment she drew Caliburn from the stone, she accepted she would suppress her emotions in favor of what she thought her people needed. If that caused her pain, it was the price of victory. Shouting yet again, Arttoria claims Iskandar can't understand her beliefs, and is nothing but a bully ruled by his own desires. Through his own roar, Iskandar asserts that a king without desire is no more than a decoration. She was a saint who could comfort her people, but not lead them. From his perspective, desires are essential to rule. Those desires must be stronger and more extreme than anyone else's, serving as an example the people should envy. Ideals and justice are unnecessary. Iskandar asserts that Arttoria tried to save her people, not guide them. She was denying herself the one thing to truly inspire her subjects, blaming that for why she lost them in the end. He insults her, calling her a little girl who surrounded herself by a useless ideal. Reflecting on this, Arttoria imagines her downfall at Camlan. She became king, knowing that would be her fate, praying for some kind of miracle that never came. It all ended in destruction. Destruction was what she feared her desires would cause. If she were like Iskandar, pursuing chaos for her own selfish gains, that would surely lead to tragedy. There would be destruction in either case, though, so was her path really any better? Gilgamesh gets a hard-on watching Artoria's troubled face as she ponders this dilemma. He admits he likes how she looks, like a virgin on which flowers are being scattered. Rather than a proper king, he sees her as a possession. Just as Artoria's about to throw down, though, grasping her invisible sword, Assassin crashes the party. We all know what happens here. Finding the assassins disrespectful, Iskandar spills their blood like wine by invoking his reality marble, Ionian Hittairoi. It is a testament to his loyal followers, an army still serving him in death. He brags that this is what a true king looks like. Rather than a lonely king who bears the weight of her kingdom like a martyr, Iskandar was a shining example for his people. They all shared his ambitions alongside him. With all the assassins slaughtered, Iskandar ends the banquet, no longer recognizing Arttoria as a king. Though, as a parting sentiment, he advises she wake up from her painful dream. She should stop trying to change her fate, else she further tarnish her own self-respect. Arttoria is left stunned. Her own beliefs are so different, and yet Iskandar's words tested her resolve. She was impressed by his army and their loyalty. Would her pursuit ever lead to the salvation she sought? Gilgamesh tells her not to worry about it, but that's because he's turned on by her tortured kingship. He likes watching her struggle under the weight of her ideals. To him, she is merely entertainment. In retaliation, Arttoria shatters the jade goblet in Gilga's hands. Apparently, nations have been destroyed fighting over this damn thing, so she's lucky he doesn't punish her. The anime doesn't show this last act of defiance, but it shows that even in this troubled state, Arttoria is determined enough to fight if Gilgamesh doesn't leave right then and there. Left to just herself and Irisfeel, Arttoria confesses that even if Iskandar had let her speak at the end, she wouldn't know what to say. One of her knights once told her that she doesn't understand people's hearts. Perhaps Iskandar had a point. Her lack of emotion, her lack of personal ambition, alienated her from the people to an extent. Apparently, a just and victorious rule wasn't adequate. Still, Irisfeel encourages her, noting that Excalibur and its tremendous might are the product of her ideals. However, in this moment, Arttoria doesn't feel proud of them. Thus, Irisfeel pushes further, noting how fate can be changed. Britain didn't fall because she was king. There are so many variables to consider that trying again would have merit. This sets Arttoria back on track, remembering why she's a servant in the first place. Of course, Arttoria goes on to suffer even more doubt. Upon seeing what becomes of Lancelot, she realizes his madness came from her inability to punish him for his affair with Guinevere. Had she been less saintly about it, he wouldn't have felt so guilty. This became the last nail in the coffin for Artoria's ideals. Wanting Britain's salvation above all else, she would then start to seek the Grail so that someone else could take her place in history, convinced she was at fault for Britain's destruction. One thing people seem to misunderstand about the Grail dialogue is that Arttoria wasn't trying to replace herself as king back then. She just wanted a do-over. Only after seeing Lancelot did she sink this far. In her lowest moment, her tears stop just long enough for the sun above her to shine through. This is intercut with Shiro's declaration to become a hero. He too would fight for his ideals, questioning them along the way. Ultimately, the two face the same dilemma, and that's what makes Fate Stay Night so beautiful. Only through Shiro does Arttoria take pride in the life she lived. Her ideals weren't wrong, even if they ended in ruin. That's why she's able to kick Gilgamesh's ass in the end. He didn't take her ideals seriously, leading to his downfall on the Fate route. If you ask me, this is the perfect character arc for Arttoria. The fact that she has doubts, the fact that she worries whether she's on the right path, makes it all the more satisfying when she regains her conviction. If you look at how she's written in Stay Night, Arttoria doesn't come off as someone who has all of her shit together. She's quick to rush into battle, and is stubborn as all hell. When she argues with Shiro, it leaves her just sitting on the Fuyuki Bridge, reflecting on everything she stood for. She has doubts and regrets because she genuinely cares. Sure, the Grail dialogue makes her seem like she lost to Iskandar and Gil, but that's only because they were louder and more arrogant than her. They mocked her ideals, while she at least tried to consider Iskandar's philosophy. One huge thing to consider is that Arttoria is playing this debate on hard mode. No matter how confident and prideful she could be, her goal is to avoid destruction. No matter how well she did as king, it wasn't good enough for her. Obviously, the two other guys who can accept their nation's downfall would seem more confident. However, that exchange was never going to determine who was truly worthy of being king, or getting the Grail for that matter. The truth is, Arttoria was a great king. She did lead her people, inspiring many of them on the battlefield. Her Knights of the Round Table are hella more famous than Iskandar's men. She could easily brag about these amazing achievements, but her doubt stems from wanting a better outcome, not for herself, but for her people. I don't see how anything I just described to you ruined her character. Before we start arguing it out in the comments, though, let's take a look at how Strange Fake approaches the Grail dialogue. Are the differences superficial? From what I saw in the anime, yes, but I'll withhold judgment till after the breakdown. In Fate Strange Fake, we've got Richard the Lionheart. He's the ultimate Arttoria simp, being raised on tales of King Arthur's glory and doing everything in his power to emulate her ideals. For some reason, Francois and Francesca Prelati think they can get under Richard's skin by showing him memories of the Fourth Grail War. They hope that actually seeing Arttoria may weaken his admiration of her. It's the dumbest plan ever, because let's be real, how does looking at Baber in any situation make her any less awesome? The only reasons Richard doesn't kneel before Arttoria in this flashback is because he too is a king, and he doesn't want to take his eyes off her for a second. It doesn't specify whether Richard knew she was a woman until now or not, but it clearly doesn't bother him. Francesca shows Richard a bunch of scenes from the Grail War, which are only lightly referenced in the novel. For the anime, they appear identical to their Fate Zero counterparts. In fair taste, Francesca doesn't want to falsify Artoria's image and reputation. For all intents and purposes, these allusions are accurate to what her familiars actually recorded 15 years prior. The dialogue itself starts with Gilgamesh stating the importance of a king to follow the laws he laid down. Then Iskandar states a king's lust for conquest. So far, this is presented as less of an actual scene, and more so a Cliff Notes. Nonetheless, Arttoria declares a king should sacrifice himself to bring salvation to his people, to follow righteous ideals that transcend his individual desires. Here's where we get our first major difference. Arttoria states her intent to go back and redo the Sword of Selection so that a more fitting king can take her place. Like I said before, Zero's Arttoria doesn't reach this conclusion until the war's end. In Strange Fake, we're skipping an important step in her development, which I don't appreciate at all. The scene continues more or less the same though. Iskandar asserts a selfless king can't lead people. Self-sacrifice is no way for a human to live. There is one catch though. In Zero, Iskandar notes that such a selfless person would be a martyr or a saint, whereas in Strange Fake, he specifically mentions her ideals would make her more like a god than man. Mind you, Iskandar's got experience with gods. He's a descendant of Zeus, and he's seen how gods often make for shitty rulers who merely impose their sense of righteousness onto people. They only wind up causing harm. Ayaka, who's also watching this illusion, mentions the assassins interrupting their debate. She thinks Arttoria may have had something more to say if they weren't interrupted. From her and Richard's perspective, though, they can't actually see Artoria's face. They can't tell if the king's silence is her admitting defeat or standing true to her ideals in the face of criticism. They only realize Arttoria has a look of agony when Gilgamesh comments on it. For the most part, we get more of Ayaka's thoughts on the scene than anything. She's generally in agreement with Arttoria, both impressed and horrified by how someone her age could fight so fiercely under all that scrutiny. In a way, Arttoria did come off as someone who discarded her humanity to rule more like an ideal machine. Regardless, Francesca's montage of illusions made Arttoria seem like a pitiful loser. More importantly, they presented King Arthur as someone who felt like a failure and wanted someone else to take over for her. The very king Richard admired wouldn't exist if Arttoria got her way. Francesca thinks this will make Richard feel like Arttoria rejected everything he stood for. Instead, Richard bows to Francesca and thanks her for the vision. He's genuinely grateful for the chance to hear a new tale of Arthur's heroism. Not once did this scene make him think any less of the King of Knights, even as other kings berated her. Richard agrees with me that this argument had no right answer. To him, the only thing that Arttoria lacked was a louder voice to match her rowdy peers. Richard admires the other kings and their perspectives, but that doesn't come at the expense of his own admiration for Arttoria. Turns out, her having doubts is part of what makes her a great king. Like a true Baber fan, he accepts her for everything she is. Having seen this, Richard is more determined than ever to fight in his own Grail war alongside Ayaka. Ultimately, there are really only two differences in this entire exchange, and I feel they're kinda superficial in the grand scheme of things. First, Strange Fake's version pushes up Artoria's later decision to replace herself as king. In Zero, she clearly states, "I want to save my homeland. I will change England's fate of destruction." Only in her sorrow at the end of the war, returned to the Hill of Camelot, does she decide, "It was not I who should have been king." Personally, I prefer how Zero handled it, as it actually shows a gradual decline of Artoria's spirits. However, both versions eventually reach the same conclusion that Arttoria states in Day 13 of the Fate route, how she wants to redo the selection of the king. Besides, for the sake of the Grail dialogue, the differences aren't that important. What Iskandar and Gilgamesh criticize isn't her method for saving Britain, but the fact that she regrets the mark she made on history. Whether she goes back and fixes things herself, or gets someone else to do it is irrelevant. Iskandar doesn't want to reincarnate so he can fix his past. He wants the chance to keep conquering, even knowing he probably won't be able to conquer the entire world. He simply wants more of what he already did. The other difference in Strange Fake is Iskandar's reference to godhood. That's not really in Zero, but again, I feel it's superficial. The core of his criticism is that sacrificing oneself for their ideals is a fruitless endeavor. He feels Arttoria is trying to deny her own fundamental nature as a human being. Fair enough, we see in FGO's Camelot singularity that if left alive with her lance, Arttoria will indeed become a goddess. Whether you call her a goddess, a martyr, or a saint, the point is that she's expecting far too much of herself while casting away her human desires. This is why Arttoria thinks of when Tristan said she didn't understand the hearts of men. Ayaka likens it to being a machine. Regardless of the metaphor, the point being she's accepting far too cruel a burden to bear. After looking at both scenes, I don't feel that Strange Fake in any way fixes Arttoria's portrayal in the Fourth Grail War. It's basically the same, if not less satisfying for how it skips her development throughout Zero itself. It certainly doesn't make the Grail dialogue any more or less compatible with Stay Night. Optimistically, I don't think Nasu claimed Zero wasn't canon to imply there was anything wrong with it. He's just extremely pedantic about specific things. When Narita was given the go-ahead to make his own version, that wasn't so he could fix anything. By this point, Nasu's probably a lot less worried about continuity, since he can easily just label inconsistencies as part of their own timelines. At the very least, if you think Zero butchers Arttoria's character, then you absolutely must agree that Strange Fake does too. I don't think either of them even remotely count as character assassination, but what do you guys think? Have I fundamentally misunderstood why certain people hate Zero? It's honestly amazing how fired up people can get on Twitter about this. Hopefully, I've done my due diligence. Until next time, celebrate your fandom. I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters: Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Mystic Samurai 1983, Otaku Mom, Free Brick, Jugemu Unko, Lunarworks, Link Pendrago, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Crow Kalem, Saul Soto, Major, Matal Mataru, Winter's Edge, Sneer Cachette, Thanathiel, Foxbox, Alzinga Fagan, Draco Chaotic, Caitlin P, Sith Lord 906, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Kengo X 77, Alistair Bernadotte, and Liamon 3. Thank you all so much.